Also wanted to mention that word there, which I cannot say in Norwegian, or actually I think that's the Danish version of the word, is how the play play was written when it was first published. That's the title of it, and it is arguably best translated as a dollhouse, not as a doll's house. And I hinted at this before, that I have a preference for calling the play a dollhouse. Here's why. Okay. If you call the play a doll's house, which is really, really common, I mean, it's used a lot. To my ear, and to the ears of people who can speak the original language, it doesn't quite hit the word as it's used in the title Ibsen gave it. Doll's house emphasizes the doll as possessive. So that says that this play is about the doll and her house, right? The title A Dollhouse is an object, right? The emphasis is on the thing, a dollhouse. Not a real house with real people, but a dollhouse, a toy that you look at the whole thing of. That's much more true to Ibsen's word that he gave the play, the title. It's also more true to realism and to Ibsen's sensibilities, because Ibsen is not so much fixated on Nora as a doll living in this world. He is interested in the systems that we see in the play. He's interested in marriage and in the laws that govern what women can and cannot do socially. He's interested in work and finance more than he is interested in Nora as an individual, singular person. Why? Because he wants social change, not just character study. It's not just about, look at this one unique individual woman and her interesting specific story. It's look at the systems in which men and women operate in modern marriage in 1879. Don't you see that there are problems here, right? He wants us to look at the dollhouse, not at the doll. Yeah? Okay, so that's why I insist on saying a dollhouse. Oh, I missed my slide went away. Can I come back? I can't. All right. Well, there was this really great picture of the original set, which you saw on a previous slide. A previous PowerPoint, and I just zoomed past it, and it won't let me go back. But it's a picture of the house, and I put it up there because I wanted to say this about realism. Realism, if you'll allow me a sort of metaphorical thing here, realism is like a science experiment. The realists wanted to set up an environment, Heredity and Environment, remember? Set up an environment, show us all the details in the environment, right? We get all this set dressing description in realistic plays, and also costume description often in realistic plays. They're going to set up this world like a little exhibit, scientific exhibit, and then put the people in it, and we watch and we figure things out as we watch it. We pick up evidence of why they do what they do and what is influencing them and what their backstory is and what the forces working on them are. We see them each have opinions, make decisions, react to each other and to their environment, and we are asked by the play to sort of observe and study this and see what we learn. That's different than melodrama, where we're given an emotional roller coaster experience and given an ability to, cry and laugh and feel pathos and things like that. Realism is trying to get us to look and notice things. Does that make sense? So that's why the scenery is so important. That's why the costumes are important. But that the scenery and costumes don't in and of themselves make it a realistic play, right? As we talked about before. So here I just threw up the names of our main characters, Nora, Torvald, Christine Lynn, or Mrs. Lynn, and Krogstad. Here you can see some images. That's our friend Minnie Mattern Fisk, who played Nora. I thought you'd like to see her again. Here's just a production shot of a Torvald, of a Mrs. Lind, of a Krogstad. And look, who's that? It's Sam Henderson playing Torvald in a production of Dollhouse in Dallas about a year ago. So think about the things we know about Nora Torvald, Christine, and Krogstad. Think about what we learn about them already in Act 1 of the play. Notice how each of them have information we are given about what is influencing them, what's at stake for them, what past they're bringing into the situation. And so we can start to notice that there's a variety of opinions on any given subject in this play. Also notice that things that they say about themselves may not always line up with what we think we notice about them, right? That's a hallmark of realism, that we think certain things about these characters, we come to certain conclusions about them based on what we see them do and what we hear them say, and how they explain their behavior to us is not the most persuasive thing in the play. Our observations of them are persuasive, right? I mean, Nora tells us things about herself. Nora reports things about herself to Christine, to Torvald, but we're invited to think about what we believe to be motivating Nora. Likewise for Christine, Krogstad, and Torvald. So think about that as you continue to work through the play. And then a couple of words about this heredity environment thing. I just pulled a few quotes to call attention to how heredity and environment are raised in the play. Ibsen, remember our discussion in the previous lecture about Darwin and Freud. So here's a quote. Torvald says, "You're an odd little one, exactly the way your father was. You're never at a loss for scaring up money, but the moment you have it, it runs right out through your fingers. You never know what you've done with it. Well, one takes you as you are. It's deep in your blood. Yes, these things are hereditary, Nora." Right? So quite on the head, we see Torvald raising this issue of you're just like your father. Of course you were that way with money because your father was. That's typical in a realistic play. The question is, do we think this is an accurate explanation of what's going on? Is Nora really just wasting money? Torvald thinks she is, and she lets him think that. But she's been raising money, scrimping and saving in order to pay back a debt that he doesn't know anything about. So his understanding of her is flawed, right? He also says this. He's talking about Krogstad, right? "Oh, I've seen it often enough as a lawyer. Almost everyone who goes bad early in life has a mother who's a chronic liar. It's usually the mother's influence that's dominant, but the father's works in the same way, of course. Every lawyer is quite familiar with it, and still this Krogstad's been going home year in, year out, poisoning his own children with lies and pretense. That's why I call him morally lost." Sorry for the typos in that. I didn't see them till just now. So he's talking about how, in the case of Krogstad, who, remember, committed a forgery in the past. Oh, no. And that's why Torvald doesn't trust him. He's saying, a guy like that around his kids all the time, he's poisoning his home. He's making his children corrupt. This is about heredity and environment. Of course, it's also really a hard thing for Nora to hear because he doesn't know, right, that she's done the same thing. And so this is weighing very heavily on Nora. But heredity and environment. And then finally, Nora says towards the end of Act 1, no, don't let them into me. She's talking about the children. She says to the nursemaid, Anne-Marie, "You stay with them, Anne-Marie. Poisoning my home, that's not true. Never in all the world." She does not want to be a poison in her own home. She does not want to be a corrupting factor on her children, but she's afraid she is because of things that Torvald has said and because of this idea of heredity environment hanging over the play. All right, that's my little lecture to you on Act 1. This is what we would have talked about if I were with you in the same room today. I miss you. I love you. Have fun reading the rest of the play.